Welcome to the Father Alchemist. This is a show about karma, surrender, and transformation. It doesn't matter what you're struggling with. It could be motivation, money, vices of any kind, drugs, alcohol, porn, shopping, food, your health and fitness, family and kids, spirituality, your business, career, anything mind, body, spirit. The Father Alchemist is a show that will help you transmute and use all that pain to create the gold version of you, the best version of you. We're bringing in some of the top minds to give you a different perspective, to make you think, and most importantly, to help you change from the inside out and the outside in. The goal of the show is to give you support in your journey to becoming the best you in all areas of your life so you can be proud of the individual you are and not held from being the greatest version of yourself. Please follow me at The Father Alchemist on Instagram and follow the show on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. If this show gives you value, a fresh perspective, if it makes you laugh or makes you think differently, please rate the show on your favorite podcast app, share it, like it, and subscribe. Your support means the world to me. Now let's make some magic happen.
A lot of people where I'm from don't make it out. I know that I'm blessed. It's a few L's and millions, so turn that loss to a check.
Dude, I gotta say, dude, like I have been looking forward to this for a really long time, and like every time we get together, dude, it's just I feel like it's magic. So hopefully we don't let the audience down this time.
Magic and money.
That's right, magic and money, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My first podcast ever.
Yeah, you got it. All first of many.
Yeah.
This is where it's all going.
Yeah.
This is my belief anyway. I think that's where it's all going. I think, I just think that I don't know if this is all just hype from social media or what, but I feel like when Trump ran for president in 2016, so much changed, right? With information that the public was receiving. Yep. And I think that because of that, it was sort of this evolution over the last, 10 years of how do we fucking know what is real, not real, truth, not truth, misinformation, fake news, whatever you want to call it. And so I think where it's going to go is, I was just talking about this, but Tucker Carlson, he gets fired from Fox News. He goes to YouTube and he's making way more money on YouTube than he ever did with Fox News, and he has a bigger following now. And I think that's what's going to happen over probably the next 10 years. I think it'll just be, people like us that are like, oh, I really like this guy, and we'll tune into their podcast, right? Or we'll tune into their YouTube channel. That'll become the source of news for us. It won't be the traditional, what we're used to, like how I grew up, which is, watching the fucking 6 o'clock news, or my parents anyway, and unfortunately, I think so much of social media, the news, it's all just, teen suicides up over 30%, over 30%, depression up over 50%. You've got, look at what's going on, man. It's like mass shootings. You've got just this, we're kind of in this weird place. And I think that, I can't speak on behalf of men, but I think that I'm a man. I can speak on behalf of myself, I guess. But I just think a lot of men, a lot of women too, are just, dude, fucking confused. They're scared. They don't know what to do. They're broke. And it's like, it's not being talked about. So anyway, all that to ask you, who are you? Tell the audience who you are.
Before I do that, just to comment on some of the things you were talking about. It's just so interesting. We live in this day and age of technology, and now everyone can and does have a voice. And, even a lot of the information you and I subscribe to, and a lot of these awesome, powerful people with great messaging, they've learned not only to create content like you're doing, but to monetize that and use that to leverage and help other people. Within that, the duality of that is, it's like how reliant are kids on social media for inner value, and these numbers are just, and I'm sure they're going to just keep growing as far as like, teen suicide and depression and anxiety. It's like all comes down to this screen, right? So we're all, it's just part of the world we live in. And I think there's good and bad in it. And my hat's off to you, because I think if people are going to spend some time on a screen, if they're not entertaining themselves, if they're doing it for education, like this and the messaging you and I subscribe to with, all these awesome coaches and leaders, and Andy Frisella and, Ben Newman and Ed Milet's, like, that's awesome. That's powerful. On the flip side of that, there's like, the 16-year-old kid that's getting like bullied, that's contemplating suicide because, everyone's like making fun of a post he put out there to just try to get himself out in the world. So it's kind of a weird area to navigate. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it is a weird area to navigate. It's like, and I'd be lying, dude, if I didn't say that there's always been a big part of me that's like, I want a lot of fucking money, and I'm not. But I think a lot of men, a lot of boys that are trying to become men, they've almost been shamed into believing that there's something wrong with that. Like somehow it's noble to only be spiritual, and it's okay to like have fucking nothing and eat bugs, and there's nothing fucking noble in that shit. You know what I mean? In my opinion, there's nothing noble about it, because there will come a time where they're like, holy fuck, like I'm fucking broke. I can't pay my bills. I don't know how to support a family, and I think that making money, there's nothing wrong with making money. However, for me, it's like something happened with thinking about this show for me, where like it somehow transitioned from making money to a real purpose, dude. Like I really, the purpose is what is really driving me now, because I just think that there's so many people, dude, that need hope, and they need to understand how. They need to have a path, right? They need to have a blueprint, and unfortunately, like that shit's not being taught in school, right? And don't get me started on that. I think you're going to have your mega institutions that will probably never go away just because there's so much money in it, right? However, I do think the educational landscape will change. I think it's already changing. I think the lot more teens and kids getting into their like early 20s, or they're starting to, this is like a lot of their education, right? And fortunately or unfortunately, YouTube has changed the landscape, and I think it's just going to be bigger and continue to grow.
It's like everything. It'll have its good and bad.
Good
and
bad.
Not magic, it's magic and money,
It's
right?
magic. That's right. But yeah, and thank you for the compliment. But yeah, just
It's gonna be fucking awesome, dude. I'm super excited.
thanks. Me too, man. I'm excited too. But tell everybody who Chris Mayer is, for those that don't know.
I'm Derek, nice buddy. So I met you, when was it? Like probably 14, 15 years ago when I started real estate in 2010.
Yeah.
So
been a-
I don't like
been a
real estate's my identity, because I have
it's
plans. I have other bigger plans. It's been my thing for a little bit, but so I'm a.
Let me remind you of who you are, bro, because I think that and I'm saying this out loud because I'm included in this.
Okay.
Like when you do anything for a long period of time, it's hard not for that to become your identity. At least, you kind of develop this identity based on what you do and how you make money. But who you are is a fucking badass, man. You're an amazing fucking friend. You're very, very selfless. You're mindful of other people. Like I was instantly drawn to you because of how you show up, and how you show up is who you are.
Yeah.
Who you are is not a realtor. And dude, anything you do is going to become phenomenal and spectacular because you put everything into it.
Well, appreciate that, Derek, and thank you, brother. So that's how we connected. So that is not who I am. And it's so interesting you mentioned that. Of the questions that I read them all, and I didn't know if we'd stay on question or not. We probably won't, since you and I always go all over the fucking place.
Maybe a little bit.
But I was actually thinking about that this morning when I was getting ready to come down, and not the specific like "who am I" question, but we tend to like answer that question with what we do, right? So like I've been selling real estate for 14 years, so like that's what I do. That's an easy lead in when people ask you about yourself. But when I really and this goes back to like kind of the identity psychology, like Tony Robbins talks about this, where who you are is not what you do, right? So when you really think about it at the core, it's like, I'm going to say like who I am. I'm, a father, an entrepreneur, I'm an athlete, I'm a artist, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Like those are things I don't say like, if you're a chef, you don't say I cook, you say I am a chef, because that ends up being your identity, right? Yeah. So, I don't tell people like I like to draw things, or like, oh, I go to the Jiu-Jitsu academy. Like that's ends up being who you are. And I think, and I know we're probably going to talk about a lot of stuff you'd mentioned, being in dark spaces and being lost, which I think we all are and have been at some times in life. But I was thinking about that this morning coming down to, I feel like when I'm off path and have been lost or felt lost is when I am operating in a way where I'm doing the things that aren't aligned with how I would define who I am. So saying, I sell real estate versus I'm a realtor, those are two different things. Or tying back into Tony Robbins, he's like, once you identify as not being a smoker, you don't say, I don't want a cigarette. You say, I'm not a smoker. So when I look back on kind of like right now, I'm in a very transitional period, and kind of like redefining who I am, actually. But when you look back and think about those core underlying themes that don't seem to go away, regardless of what you're doing, I think those kind of define actually who you are. So,
where did you grow up?
Outside Chicago.
That's right.
Schaumburg.
When did you come here?
I came to Colorado mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-90s.
Yeah, I finished school in the Midwest, and then I was a big snowboarder, so I came out here.
Oh, yeah. We just had Vivian. She's a big snowboarder too.
Okay.
I think probably a lot of people that come to Colorado are big snowboarders.
I don't go that much anymore. I pick my poisons of where I can get hurt. As you know, I think you've said to me many times, "You do hurt."
It's like, well, man. First of all, nothing but amazing respect for you, for anyone that has accomplished the like black belt level in jiu-jitsu. I got a black belt in Taekwondo, and I can say that they were just handing out belts. Okay. Like, I mean, not like intentionally, but there was a business mindset, I think, with, I don't know if this was just with Koreans that were migrating to this country that decided to open up Taekwondo studios. It really started to pop when I was in high school. So this isn't like 97, 98, 99, 2000. Like there was this big surge of at least Taekwondo, but it was, looking back, it felt like kind of a money operation a little bit, where it was like pay to test and you get a belt.
Yeah.
And something I really admire about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like when somebody gets a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, that it's like been earned.
Yes.
Legitimately. And you were even telling me that story. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Like, because you were like, shit, dude, am I ever going to test into black belt? And part of me is like, I wonder if they did that on purpose. Like,
yeah, well, you hit the sweet spot, so I could talk about jiu-jitsu the whole time.
Yeah,
so thank
yeah.
you. But that's been a huge part of my life. It changed and saved my life in a lot of different ways. And a lot of the just everything I've learned in jiu-jitsu translates on and off the mats. It's helped me out in life in many ways. But as far as being a legitimate martial art, it's and no, I'm just going to say karate. I'm not throwing karate under the bus, but it's like, you talk to your clients and like, yeah, my, 7-year-old daughter's like a 9th degree black belt in karate. She started like 2 years ago. You're like, okay, like, how much damage can she do if she actually needed to? But yeah, so I started training in 2010, and it's on average, it takes about 10 years to get a black belt. So it took me 12. I got promoted December 10th, 2022. So I remember that date. That's an important date. So, and it's just, it's one of those few things in life I did, aside from my kids, is definitely one of my biggest accomplishments. And it's just, there's no bullshit. There's no shortcuts. It's like, you've got to fucking walk through the fire to get there. And it's like a lot of accomplishments. Like once you get there, it's just the beginning, it's just, but it ends up being who you are. It's a big part of who I am. But yeah, it's super technical. There's like a myriad of information, and it's like, even being a black belt, you're just at the tip of the iceberg. And, it's very humbling. I've been sidelined for, a lot of injuries, as surgeries, and I detached my pec from my arm, which wasn't fun. So that was a couple years off. Actually, 6 months off, and then on and off, just trying to reintroduce myself and pushing it too hard and having setbacks. So
I've heard that a lot of people call JuJitsu the gentleman's martial art.
The gentle art.
Have you heard that before?
Yeah, the gentle art.
But is that really true? Because I think it's like you're fucking always injured, bro.
It hasn't been too gentle to me. So no, I think a couple cool things about jiu-jitsu. I believe the reason it's called the gentle art is because you're using people's energy against them. So if I push on you, you have the option to get pushed over or push your weight back into me. And if I'm aware of those reactions, if I go to push you down and you push back into me, I can pull you and you're going to face plant. So that's the gentle part about it. But
when I heard that for the first time, when I was listening to Bedros, Bedros' show, and so he shares about it on his podcast a lot. But when I first heard it, I immediately thought of you and your way of being, and it's something that, like, as I've been thinking about, like, do I get my kids involved in jiu-jitsu at some point?
Absolutely, yes.
I've been like excited to introduce them to it because of you, dude. Because there's this Zen spiritual kindness about you, but also like underneath it all, I'm like, you could fucking kill me. But the gentle part of it, I associate to someone that has this ability where it is humbling because it's taken you many, many years. You're a master at it, and the way you treat people and what you can, it's almost like a reverence and respect for your own ability. And so I'm curious what you kind of think about that.
I think it's a pretty cool observation. So I think there's just an inner calm that comes with, I mean, shit hit the fan and you got in a fight. Like I've fought a lot of people and spent thousands of hours fighting people. So it's like I'm probably more prepared than the drunk guy at the bar, like starting a fight, right?
Sure.
But that's not the point of it. It's not to be tough and go out and start fights. And what I found in jiu-jitsu is like some of the biggest killers are like the nicest. They don't have anything to prove. It's almost like anything in life. It's like the people that are out gloating and just being aggressive on the outside probably have an insecurity on the inside. So at least that aspect of my life, I feel pretty confident and calm about. So hopefully I'm not getting in any fights, but if I did, maybe I'd know what I was doing. So but for the kids too, like that's the other amazing thing about jiu-jitsu. It is the gentle art. It is about leverage. And one of the things I was most impressed about is, having these seemingly small people that would be at a disadvantage in a self-defense situation or a hand-to-hand combat conflict, like just pretzeling up like big huge fucking muscular people and shit. So I started seeing that, like, one of my favorite training partners, like a 100-pound girl who I literally would not want to fight in the streets, and she's a fucking badass. So, but seeing that, like, the effectiveness of that as a self-defense mechanism, if it was needed, I think is cool. And back to the belt thing, it's so there's no testing, and most jiu-jitsu academies, at least that I've been exposed to, promote very conservatively. So there's a definitive line between a white belt and a blue belt. So if you're a white belt, even if you're training with, or if you're a blue belt training with like a bigger, stronger white belt, there should be an advantage for the blue belt because of the ranking and the skill level and the technique and the ability, regardless of the size and strength. And not to say like the white belt can't beat the blue belt, but there's conservative promotions, and it's done by observation too. So you don't go in and do like a fucking kata or test. All of a sudden, sometimes it's by surprise, and other times they're like, "Hey, Derek, you going to be at the promotion party on Saturday?" Yeah, exactly. So I was a white belt for about 18 months, which was about average. Blue belt for I don't know how long. I was a fucking purple belt forever. Oh, I just saw the big black dog. Say hi.
Yeah,
Sorry, squirrel. I love animals, as you know. Yeah, I was a purple belt forever, and I was like, man, it's like I felt like I was training really well with people on upper belts, and that outsized me and everything. And yeah, that's like my purple belt's pretty tattered. So that was I was a purple belt for I think 6 years or something, which is a little frustrating too. And after 6 years, yeah. I don't know. Like, so it's, from start to finish, I think average about 10. I had some friends that were
belts between white and black?
white, blue, purple, brown, black. So 5 belts in total. So there's only 4 promotions.
Okay, so on average, it should take a couple years.
Yeah, and you get stripes in white. Some academies stripe other belts. We just stripe white belts, and then actually switch to so 4 stripes after you don't have a 5th stripe. So if you're a 4-stripe white belt, your next promotion. I think they do that too because the belt promotions drag out, and especially for kids too. They're excited about promotions.
Or just white?
So we just do white belts, stripes, and then some academies. So you'll go in some academies and see a dude that's like a 3-stripe brown belt. He's 1 stripe more being a brown belt, and then he's promoted to black. So, but we go like kind of that visibility into like where you're at within the belt goes away at the academy I train at. So and actually switch it to a green. So you go white, green. Now there's an in-between belt, but basically you're striped on a white belt, green belt, blue, and then I was just a purple belt forever, fucking grinding it out. And that's when I got hurt. That's when I hurt no stripes. So, and then
teach somebody like to not have a stripe and to not have a test. Like, what is it that you earned from that?
So I'm unaware if any academies do testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I am aware of academies that stripe all the way up to black belt promotions. Mm-hmm. And then once you're a black belt, you start getting stripes as well. I don't know the strategy behind that at Dark Horse Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu where I train. It's interesting. I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. It's just like, when you're ready, you'll get promoted. And then also I think your goals change over time too. It's like when I first started training, I was competing a lot, and then you're kind of like chasing belts and stripes and medals. And then, I didn't start training jiu-jitsu until I was like 38. So it's like, as you get a little older and start getting injured, like my goals are completely different. Now it's fucking awesome. I have a black belt, but my goals are like, I just want to be able to do this. It's like, I don't give a shit about the belts and stuff like that, but yeah. But I think it's, I kind of like the idea that there's not a test, just like your lineage, the upline black belt from you is just, it's by observance. And I don't know like what the definitive line is like, okay, now this person's now a black belt. Like you were a brown belt yesterday and you walk in a black belt. It's a slower evolution, but I think you get to the stage where the academy's comfortable putting a belt on you and you've earned it, where you're not going to be a black belt going and visiting some other academy, getting your ass kicked by a bunch of white belts.
Right.
So
Right. Got it.
I think hence the reason conservative promotion. I think that could be part of that.
From the outside in, and by the way, I want to comment on my comment earlier about Taekwondo. Like,
Okay.
I'm not shitting on Taekwondo.
And I'm not sure
like,
karate.
yeah.
I'm gonna kick my
guys. No. I really am not. Like, it was an amazing experience for me. It just, like, now fast forward 20 years and I'm looking on the outside in, it just seems like there is more of a conservative approach to JuJitsu, and that's something I really, really respect. You know, but when it comes to like the stripes or no stripes and that conservative approach, it's almost like, to me, I wonder if it's, you know, it almost teaches that like greatness and excellence is, it almost removes the ego, right? Because the ego is what gets excited when it's like, I just got this.
Yeah.
Right. And like when you don't know when that's coming,
Yeah.
it's probably like you almost go through what is it, the 6 stages of grief, where you're like, you're like fucking pissed off and you're angry, and then you like acceptance, right? But I think going through those emotions, I mean, especially for some, like that's humbling, right? And it also, I think, teaches. It kind of teaches this idea of like being committed to the process and getting lost in the process and becoming the best version of you, regardless of what the outcome is. Because, you know, and I think too, like, this is unfortunate, and I don't know if it's changing. I hope it is. I'll find out, because now I have 2 little kids. But, you know, I think it's like there was this moment in time, and again, maybe it's still happening, but where it's like everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets an award. And I think it's the wrong message, man.
Yeah.
Like when you have that like outcome for anybody. And I think my personal belief is like, no, dude, there's fucking winners and losers. That's the reality. Yeah. Like, whether it's, you know, politically or socially correct to think that or say that, I don't really give a shit. But it's like, the reality is you're either going to win or you're going to lose. And I think it's not a bad thing. Like, it's good to want to win. Yeah. Right. Like, and I think as a culture, we've kind of lost that, right? Where it's almost like we're okay with not winning.
Yeah. And it's good to lose.
And it's good to lose. Absolutely. Dude, spot on, man. Yeah. It's good to win and it's good to lose. I think it's the losing that actually makes you better. It's not the winning, right? So. Yeah.
Tying that into jiu-jitsu, you know, and I teach this. I'm not an instructor, but I run some classes and I used to coach kids. But I think a really thing to keep in mind, just even I remind myself of this, is like if I'm there to win, I'm not going to learn as much. But if I'm there to learn, I'm going to win as a byproduct. Especially like people that come in with natural talents, if they're athletic or have a wrestling background, or like, you know, big fucking strong dudes. It's like, yeah, you can sit on me and squash me for a 8-minute round, but like, what did you learn? Like, you're heavier than me, like fucking great, you know. But yeah, definitely. Yes.
Hopefully, you're not overweight.
Might have to edit that part.
Yeah.
But just the mindset of like, not winning.
Not that there's anything wrong with being overweight.
But the mindset of, and it's interesting. It's not a mindset of not wanting to win or not being competitive, but I think if you're in tune to learning and growing, winning is going to be a byproduct of that.
Dude, love that, man. So
I love it too. I don't live by it all the time, so but it's fun to win.
Yeah. But what was it that actually got you into the sport? A practice initially, like what is it that drew you to it? And
back to karate, throwing karate under the bus. I started karate as a kid. It was Goju and Shorei, which are two Japanese forms of karate, and I've always done. I grew up playing sports and soccer and stuff. I eventually gravitated towards being athletic, but not in like team environments, so like skateboarding, BMX, snowboarding, and stuff like that. But I was exposed to karate as a kid. I really liked martial arts, and I remember it's like this is a rumor. I don't know if it was true or not. I was probably like 8 to 10-year-old kid, but the sensei was like on cocaine. He was like this crazy fucking like angry dude, and probably did a bunch of stuff that wouldn't fly in modern times. But like,
Wait, what year was that?
let's see.
85.
Yeah. No, like I was born in 71, so like I have one karate picture of me with like a green belt in my gi. So I was probably like 10 in that. So yeah, early 80s, like where probably everyone was doing cocaine and fucking whatever. But
Yeah, like looking back, it was a front for cocaine. They were using that to traffic.
Well, this is a long time ago. I have a shitty memory, but I think it like shut down very quickly or something. There was some fucking weird shit about it. But I don't even remember this guy's name, but I remember taking karate and dude, it was just fucking awesome. I liked it. It was kind of cool, like just from the self-defense aspect. And, again, another thing that probably wouldn't fly nowadays, they would call it 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 self-defense. We do it with weapons as well. So they take all these fucking kids, and 2-on-1 self-defense was 2 lines of kids, the entire class, and then you, if you were the one, and they would just say, go. And these 2 kids, and we just fucking beat the shit out of each other. So if you were the... Well, with weapons were not
they weren't like actual. They were like like the nunchucks had
the nunchucks with the foam, but you get fucking hit in the shins. Yeah. So they would just give all these kids like weapons, and then the knives were
like wrestling. It's fake. Yeah. Like no, it's not. Like
and then the knives were basically like not PVC, but like really thick rubber that would cut off, but like that would hurt too with these kids. So we do 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 self-defense. They just say go. These kids would fucking beat the shit.
The sensei. What did they call the?
So he was a sensei. Yeah, I think the only
karate sensei.
Yeah. It was Hajime was start and Mate was stop. So I think they'd just be like Hajime, and then these kids just beat the fucking shit out of
It's just like coked out. Like here's a bunch of fucking weapons.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Fucking blowing lines behind them.
Yeah. Good job.
We probably didn't sign a waiver back in the day, I don't know. But so anyways,
that's
fact, I got sidetracked a little bit. But back, so that I was exposed to martial arts as a kid.
Were you ever bullied?
No, and like looking back, I wasn't like a popular kid, but I had this. My friend was like a tough kid. He had like a bunch of brothers that like beat him up and shit. So I was friends with this dude, so no one fucked with me. I don't think it's because I was tough. I mean, I got in like fights and shit when I was little, but I used to fight my buddy Matt quite a bit too. Like, I was just beat the shit out of each other, and my dad would be like, "Is everything okay out there?" We'd be playing football,
like
and then
sparring or like actually, you guys
no,
would go
just
at
be
it.
playing like fucking like. Well, there's another thing you might need to add out. Smear the queer. I don't know if you remember that football. Smear the queer. You know what that is?
I mean, yeah.
You know what that is, though? Smear the queer.
Smear the queer.
Yeah.
Dude. Oh yeah, I played that shit too.
Yeah. So we'd be playing like full on contact football, no pads, and then like you're just getting fights every once in a while with your friends, and then you'd be getting like bare knuckle fucking fist fights, and then like my dad would look out and be like, "Everything okay out there?" We'd be like, "Yeah," and then Matt would be like, "It's okay, Mr. Mayor," and then we'd like just go back to playing football. Like,
that's amazing, dude. But for people that don't know what that is, because I would say a lot of people don't know what that is, right? Because now that is not that's
it's the LGBTQ too.
No, but tell people kind of what it is.
So Smear the Queer, it was football, but basically it was one person with the football, and then everyone else would be trying to tackle him. So
when would they call it queer though?
I don't know. Just that was the person you were trying to get. Yeah. So there was a lot of shit we'd said back then.
Like
you can't say
gay actually means happy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We used to say gay all the time, but it's like stupid. We weren't like. I mean, I didn't.
Yeah, you weren't.
Like when I grew up in the East, I didn't know anyone that was gay. No one was open about it, which is amazing about the world we live in now. But be like, oh, that's gay. Like it's just like I got a fucking homework. There
was no like malice in saying it.
It's just it was just an expression that
expression.
was meant like something dumb, But no. So, anyways, back. I'm going all over the place. Karate, and then whatever, and then this is one of the. I don't like saying I have any regrets, but one thing I do look back on and think like, oh fuck, I should have just stuck with this. I walked into a jiu-jitsu academy when I was 30. I really started training when I was 38, and it was Easton Jiu-Jitsu in.
Somebody that inspired you to walk in there?
I was just thinking about martial arts. I don't even know why I thought about jiu-jitsu, but it was crazy when I walked in there. They were like teaching all this shit about like choking people and fucking breaking joint stuff. And my thought was like, is this illegal? Like, can they, I was like, are you allowed to show people this shit? And I was like, man, this is fucking awesome. And so me and my two buddies did like the 1 month free, get a, gi or whatever. And I only did it for like a month, but we liked it so much we used to go back to my house and like move my couch and like wrestle on the fucking carpet, get like rug burns and shit. Awesome, and then like logistically, I just ended up working somewhere else, and for a few years, like on my New Year's resolution, like, oh hey, this is something I want to do this year. I just remember like writing jiu-jitsu down a handful of times, and then when I moved to Longmont, I just dropped a pin and. There was a jiu-jitsu academy like a few miles from me, and I walked in and they were like, oh, hey, you have the free month. I'm like, you don't need to. I'm like, just fucking sign me up. I know I'm in. So it took me a little while to circle back, but yeah.
You said it was a New Year's resolution. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people probably make resolutions. 99 out of 100 probably quit them on January 2nd, right? And so one thing was that you made a resolution and then you actually followed through with it. The other thing is you said that you started with a couple other guys. Are those guys still doing it?
My buddy Mike trained for a little while, and then Andy didn't. But his son actually went to an academy, affiliate academy of where I go in Denver for a little bit. So those guys didn't stick with it.
What do you think it is that like causes some people to follow through and stick with a commitment? And I'm talking about the resolution, right? Because you likely got involved and it became something that you were very passionate about, right? And so it's now become part of who you are. But like, dude, I have always struggled with, starting and stopping things. And it's really a thing that I'm trying to focus on and become better at, because it's not something that I really like about myself. But I was talking with the guest earlier, and I was talking how I have this huge bookshelf at my house, like not floor to ceiling, but a lot of books that are nonfiction, that are personal development and self-help. And when I first met my wife, she was like, wow, you read a lot. And I do read a lot. Yeah. But I was like, I've maybe started a lot of books, but they look good. I confront and say that I have, but I really haven't. And
You've read
I read the intros, but looking back, it's like, you know what? At the same time, like I don't really have any shame in it, because it's like there's just some shit I feel like people love, and it captures them, and then other things it doesn't. But sometimes it takes trying to find out what works, And I think now people are so afraid of just trying and starting shit, they don't really know. So really all they're doing is they're philosophizing, or they're playing this whole scenario out in their head, and then they never give it a shot. And the truth is they're never going to know if they're fucking good at it or if they like it, unless they, like, look, you should have a propensity to want to do the thing, right? But and like, back to my question for you is like, what is it that you think causes people to quit?
It's a great question. I'll try to unpack that in a few different ways. One, you just said something that made me think of my kids, and they're a little bit older, but this is true in life. Like, we don't really gravitate towards shit we're not good at, and we don't like it as much. Yeah. But to get good at anything takes a lot of time and effort and energy and focus, right? So, I teach my kids that, or try to teach my kids that all the time. And I remember the day we day one, they suck, and they're like, we want to quit. And we're like, it's that balance as a parent, as you know, it's like I'm not like, you're doing lacrosse for 20 years, but we're like, you can't fucking quit. It's day one. You go like, let's try it out. And if you don't like it, we'll move on. And I remember I wasn't in the car, but my son Sebastian was in the car with his mom, and all of a sudden broke out crying and was like, "Why are you making us do this stuff?" And we're like, "Okay, you can stop lacrosse after 2 years." And
He didn't like it.
he didn't like it. They never, they didn't. They just never pulled it together as far as lacrosse and team sports stuff.
Done jujitsu.
They have, yeah. They both did it for like 10 years. So
10 years?
about 10. Yeah, they quit right around COVID. Wow, so Sebastian's doing Muay Thai, so he's still in the martial arts, and Matea just kind of moved on. But yeah, she can fuck you up too. Like, she's got those little arms. She's like chokes you. Like,
How old were they when they got involved?
Well, Sebastian was too young. Like, we took him in there and for an intro, and he was like, the expression is like chasing butterflies when you're a soccer coach. There's no butterflies inside the academy, but my professor was like he doesn't have any attention span. You need to bring him back in 6 months. So probably like 4 and 6 or something. Like maybe 5 and 7, something like that. But
You had to pick an age, like for all those parents out there that have kids where they're looking to maybe get them involved in something that's an outlet. Like, what are the pros and cons of jiu-jitsu as a parent and as for their kids? And is there a particular, like, generally speaking, an age that you think is probably a good age to start?
yes. So here, let me rewind to the commitment and quitting and stuff first, and then it's easy for me to talk about jiu-jitsu. I'll forget the other shit.
Okay.
Excuse me. So quitting, me writing, I write a lot of shit down, and I think part of that's because if I don't write stuff out, I don't remember it. But then when I go back and look at things, I'm like, fuck, man, why did I have to write that thing down for 6 years before I actually fucking started doing it? So I'm no master at like writing shit down and executing and committing and not quitting. Like, I fail at all those things, but I do have a tendency to write a lot of stuff down. For me, if I don't write stuff down, it's never going to materialize into anything. So I feel like the things that I end up bringing into the fold of my life are the things that I write down. And it might not just be like, let's go out and get rich. Like, that'd be great if you can just write that down and fucking materialize. As you know, like, the things of value take a long time and are very hard, and you want to quit at them. So I think a lot of people give up because they don't understand the process. So kind of going back to my kids, it's like, yeah, this looks cool, but I want to be fucking awesome at it. And if I'm not awesome at it, I don't feel good and I quit. So it's like all of that greatness, if you're good or great or excellent or the best at anything, and I'm not saying I am not the best at anything in life, but the things that I have found, I'm grateful to have found that I love and feed my soul. They're not as hard to do as they are really hard. So it's like jiu-jitsu for me, it's a fucking hard, long road, but there was something about it. Like, I was just like, oh yeah, you can learn how to fucking put people to sleep. Like, this is fucking awesome. Like, whatever it is, I think there has to be like,
a secret.
Yeah, just yeah, that was that for me. Like, I was kind of like, but for everything else in life, I think like anything of value is a long fucking hard road, and like even some of the great minds that you and I listen to their content and share their material. It's like, I just sent you the Andygram to. It's like Andy's messages are fucking phenomenal. It's all about like those guys want to fucking quit. Like anyone that we look at that we admire has felt the same emotions that we feel in trying to do what we're trying to do. Like, no one wins. Like, that was fucking easy. No one like walks onto the mat and gets a fucking black belt thrown around. It's like, so
it's a human emotion, and I think that the irony in that, like the irony in somebody being at, like, to me, such a high level, or they run $1 billion company, they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, I think if you're not there, it's easy to idealize that situation and go, oh,
Yeah.
fuck, dude, if I had that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, if I was making all that money,
Yeah.
and there's this sort of like allure to it.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think Andy's talked about this even, but it's like the irony is that when you get there, whatever that level is to you, it is actually now more fucking difficult.
Yeah.
There are just bigger pressures, bigger challenges, bigger stresses.
Yep.
And so it's almost like the evolution of an entrepreneur. And I think, I guess, fortunately, because I think the world could use a lot more people that decide to change the world and do something great for people, but also it's become very popular. And I think that, you know, people want to do it because they see the Lambo.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever. And it's really fucking hard, and it's not for everybody. You know, I think it's just not for everybody. And it's okay that it's not for everybody, you know, but anyway.
We see the thing,
Yeah.
but don't understand the process.
The
So
process.
once you start understanding the process, and if you're committed to learning and growing, and understand that even the difficulties along the path are beneficial to our growth as and evolution as a human being and our ability to help others, I think that can help in that commitment and not quitting. I mean, they on the surface, it's easy. It's like find the thing you want, start, and don't quit. Right? That's the formula, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
but that's way easier said than done. It's like, you know, how many we do, yeah. But the process, I don't want to say the process complicates it. I think the process is always a lot harder and longer than we anticipate. And I think that might be part of my answer. It's like the expectation, like when you sign up for JuJitsu, you know, there's a saying like a black belt's a white belt that never quit, which is true. You're there fucking long enough, and you obviously have to do more than show up. But I think that's a great analogy for life too. If you want the thing, then you just have to keep going, no matter what gets in the way. So, and things are going to get in the way, and you're going to get sidetracked and distracted and want to quit. And if you do, you're never going to get there. But if you don't, eventually, you can bend the possibilities into reality and manifest things.
I'd love to talk about your belief with manifestation, your experience with it. You know, do you believe it's a thing? What and what would you say to the person that maybe they're in a fucking deep dark hole, they're depressed, right? They can't seem to pull themselves out of it. Like, and if you were that person, you rewind and you're that person maybe as a teenager, early 20s, like what would you say to that version of you now that you know what you know?
Well, I don't think I have to go back to when I was a, teenager in my 20s. A lot of times I feel more lost in life now than I did when I was younger. I mean, I fully believe in so if you think about like everything that's around us in the world of form has begun as a thought, and that's except for nature, and who knows how that started, but just everything around us, someone thought of this. So yeah. But if you think about the world we live in and the 3D world of form that we operate through with our senses, it's most of it was manifested by human beings, the mind, and creation. So it's kind of cool I believe in manifestation because I feel like we're living in a result of it. There's proof all around us. So that said, I know we can create things. I know we can manifest things. I fully believe in it. I think the challenge comes that even if you believe in that 100%, this kind of goes back into the process and time and energy. I think a lot of things are a lot more difficult to manifest than we realize. So we can't just think of things and they appear. I think they start in the mind, but then there's a ton of other force and energy and principles that have to be put behind that for the thing to happen.
Yeah, totally. But like, I think about ideas that I've had, right? And really for anybody that is like, oh man, dude, it'd be cool to do that. First of all, I think everyone's different, but I think a lot of people out there are like, they imagine that they have to invent something.
Right.
They imagine they have to like invent a product or invent a service. And, you know, like when you're seeing all these guys on social media, or you see somebody like a Musk who like just fucking out of nowhere is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, can you really even fathom that much fucking money? Right. You know, but what are your thoughts on like the person that is stuck because they can't think of the idea? And then what would you say to the person who's got the idea and they're inspired by the idea,
right?
But they can't seem to do anything about it, right? Like they get stuck in the like the mental gymnastics and the perpetual like I've got to make it perfect, and eventually they get lost in that perfection, and oftentimes it never actually turns into anything, and then it almost creates this like you know, this negative self-talk with like, dude, I never fucking do anything. I never follow through with anything. I'm a fucking piece of shit, right? Like, and I'm saying this because, I mean, this was literally me with the fucking show, right? Yeah. Like, you know, and I do believe in manifestation, but also like, I think for me, I just got to a point where I was triggered, and it was like, I literally remember the thought of like, I am a fucking piece of shit if I don't do this. Like, enough thinking. Now I just got to do it. But I think, at least for my own sake, the fear in it was, what if people don't like me? What if it's not good enough? How am I going to sound? Like, what am I going to say? You know, there's 1,000 other thoughts that come with the like doing. Yeah. But now that I've done it, right? And the jury's still out on whether it's any good or not, but like, you know, dude, I agree, man. I agree. We're going to have you back every show. But after, ladies and gentlemen, and we have Chris Mayer back in the studio.
Get this fucking.
But like looking back now, like the perspective I have now is that, holy shit, I've done it. And even though it's brief, I mean, we just launched the show, but it's like, fuck, dude, what was taking me so long? Like, why did I sit around and fucking think about it forever? And then it causes me to think about like what else have I done that with my whole life? Like, and I believe in the manifestation and the ability to time collapse, but why do you think people get stuck?
That's a great question. I think we all have, well, I think we could be grateful for those thoughts. Like, if you didn't think about this, it wouldn't be happening. So it's easy to beat yourself up like, fuck, I thought about this thing for 2 years before I actually did it. And it's easy to sit down with a couple of microphones, but this is like, you had an artist come in, like, look at all this equipment. Like, it takes time and energy, right? So there's a process. And I also just think, like, it's human nature to doubt ourselves and have these thoughts of like, oh, what if no one watches it, or what if no one likes it, or what if I suck? Or I think that's all natural, and I think that could slow down execution. I think maybe there's some human beings in the world that like think about shit and fucking do it and manifest it and then move on to the next thing. I'm not a strong executor. I'm very in my head. I think about shit. I write shit down a fucking bazillion times before I actually do it. And then reflecting back, you're like, oh, fuck, well, why didn't I fucking stick with jujitsu when I was 30? Why did it take me 8 years to go back? Like, where would I be? I could beat myself up over that, or I could just be grateful to be like, well, thank God I just fucking wrote it down a handful of times and finally did it because, and I don't like looking back at that specific example. I don't know if there was any, like, it's a bullshit excuse. It was just logistics that kept me from doing that. Like, I knew I wanted to do it. But kind of tying this into the manifestation piece, it's like, we have a lot of similar ideas, and I think we're very connected in a lot of ways. But like, I think a perfect example is like children's books. We both have been inspired and talked about children's books. Like, it's not easy, but it's like you have the thoughts of like, I have a children's book drafted, which you've seen, and I'm just getting cutting my teeth in digital art. I'm very proficient at just drawing freehand, but now everyone's using technology, so I'm learning that piece.
Shout out to Chris Miller. Like, this dude's an incredible artist, like a phenomenal. I mean, seriously, dude.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
You're like, oh, like I've done some drawings, and I'm like, cool. I'm like, send me some of your stuff, and I was like, holy fuck, dude, like this.
Well, that's one of the things too. Again, I can beat myself up about this too. Like, I am an artist. That's one of the things I can say I am. I've done art all my life, but there's also been these long periods where I'm like, well, maybe I can't make money at art, or maybe I'll do this, or get fucking sidetracked, and like, here we are. So it's like, we can beat ourselves up, which we do. But
when you came in, you're like, this is a level 2. I could do it.
Like that. This is very crisp. I don't want to throw this artist under the bus. This is very kind of like you and I have the same style art that we like. But so the children's book example. Okay, so great. The children's book that I'm working on, which kind of gets bumped to the, it's not a super high priority because I have a few other things going on. But I started drawing it, drafting it. But I look back. Where that was initiated was from like 10 fucking years ago. Like, I had some storyboards of the pig and did some shit, and I took those first like handful of pages. I was like, oh, this is pretty good, and built off that. So talk about writing shit down without fucking doing anything. That was just like in my art folder. I was like, oh, this ain't bad.
Dude,
so
it was great. So the thing is like, I saw that, and in my mind, I immediately went to this place of like, but how did you, like, I want to get so technical with everything and like understand the how.
Right.
And that's where I get lost, because I'm like, I don't understand the how.
Right.
And I think what I realized with the show is like, shit doesn't matter. You got to find who can, like, I forget where I heard it, but it's somebody else's genius, right? Like, in terms of the equipment and how to set it up and which camera to buy and like the light, all of it. It's like, I see the vision of it, but it's not my genius to like pick out the audio mixer and like, so, but it is their genius, and that's who I want to find, right? Instead of getting caught up in the how to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think you can take your ideas to a certain point, and then you need the help of others that have other areas of expertise. But back to the book. So I have the there's other projects I'm doing right now that I'm not solely reliant on myself, which is, I think, why I kicked the dust off of doing art, because I'm like, while I'm waiting for all this other fucking shit to happen, I can like, no one's stopping me from sitting down and like making up some rhymes and drawing. And I remember you asked me, like, how do you do this with the thing? I'm like, I don't know, just think of words that rhyme.
I know. I'm like,
the book yet.
I know there's a fucking science. What the fuck is he doing here? And you're like, and dude, by the way, so as I've been researching all this shit, like, the people that I respect that I've been talking to about really any part of it, they're like, well, it's me. I just do it. And I'm so caught up in like, I want to delegate. And like, I don't want to be the guy to do it. But I think there's a balance, right, between being willing to do it and knowing if you like it or not. Yeah. Do it. Okay, cool.
Gets into jiu-jitsu. But manifestation, the children's book, whatever, I think there's a point where I can get this where I could do it myself. I can have the story, draw it, and then have someone smarter than me edit it or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then I have the thing. And so I know 1,000% I can manifest that. And not that I doubt the manifestation of this, but I think this is where there's a difference between controlling things and influencing them, right? So I can control getting the book to a certain point, and then I'm relying on someone that knows how to like publish a book and disseminate it and ship it and all that shit.
Sure.
So there's another thing that's on the back end of especially for people like you and I have all these manifestations. There's a secondary, or not even a secondary goal. There's another goal behind that, which is to either generate wealth from it or make an impact, right? So I know, or both. Yeah, exactly. Magic and money, right? So think about, you could do this podcast, it could never go anywhere, but you are in control of the manifestation of the podcast. Who knows if you'll have 15 million followers, which I hope you do. So I can get the book done and have someone help me publish it. I don't know if I'll sell 1 or 5 million. So I think there's part of that path to big thinkers and big dreamers like you and I that like goes beyond our control. And if I could manifest being worth 8 figures, I would have fucking done it already. So I think that's the struggle. We're figuring out the thing that leads to the bigger things, which are, so getting the book done, getting the podcast done, we're in control of all that stuff. Showing up for JuJitsu class is the part of it. It's the process, but then it gets to a certain point, especially with like business and material things. I think again, if I knew how to do this shit, I would have done it all already. So I think there's part of that process of manifestation where it gets to the point where you are putting it into the universe, and there is some things that you can strongly influence, but it's not, you don't have full control.
And yeah, I agree with that. I also think too, like the collective we, the royal we all get attached to a particular outcome that we envision in our minds.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you stay open to all the possibilities without being attached to the outcome? Right.
That's awesome.
Because the outcome
I like
might.
the way you said that. That's great. What did you say? Stay attached.
How do you stay open to all possibilities without being attached to the outcome? Because when you start anything, you have a desired outcome.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't fucking start it. Right. But oftentimes, the thing that you believe the outcome should be or that you want it to be doesn't end up that way. It ends up being something different along the way. But how do you surrender, right? How do you surrender to the changes and be open to whatever it becomes?
Yeah, I want to stay on this for a second because that was fucking awesome, and it made me think of Tropic Thunder when Ben Stiller's like,
dude, I have to rewatch that movie.
It's so fucking good. Yeah, man, that's so brilliant, Eric. I don't know, man. I don't have the answer to it, but I think having that in mind, because we do have attachment and we have the ability to detach or accept things, and the things that we believe we can change and influence and control, I think those are the things that we want to spend our energy in, right? But along that way, there's always, you can think and think and think, and we can write shit down and plan from A to B, and it's never going to look like that once we start doing it. I think breaking the procrastination, starting to do the thing is where the magic happens, because that's what you're talking about. Is like, okay, I have this in mind. This is where this podcast is going. This is the idea for the book. This is the idea for like the business invention. Along that way, there's so many other things and pivots and shifts that happen that end up being as important, or if not more important, than the desired thing that we're attached to. So I think the most important part of that is, and not that I'm good at this either. Like I said, I'm more of a thinker and creative than executing. So it's like, it takes me a while to execute, and I think I can leverage other people to execute more effectively. But I think starting is important, because there's the unknowns that we get paralyzed by, and keep us from starting, but we don't really know what those unknowns are until we're doing the thing. And then those surface and cause us to learn and grow and shift or overcome. And more is revealed. So yeah, I mean, I love the way you stated that, just keeping open to the possibilities. And maybe it's, maybe it is still being attached to the outcome, or maybe it's kind of being open to the outcome as well, because the path could shift. But I really like the way you said that. So.
Thanks. We probably should wrap up here soon, but I wanted to, and we could go forever. That's
Like I said,
like maybe this turns into like a Joe Rogan 4-hour.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Next 6 guests, the lineup again.
Always like this with you, brother. I just, like
It's fun.
time flies with you, brother.
That's
I
good.
appreciate it. So,
So maybe we could wrap up with like, because we kind of started talking about how my belief is that there's a lot of people struggling out there. And listen, there's a lot of people doing awesome things too, right? But is there a time in your life where you were really, and look at, like, we all have many, right? But like when I think about a time in my life that was really like, I mean, I think everyone's bottom's different, but like for me, it was like I don't know if I was suicidal, but I definitely had thought about it. Like I had thought about it, and that was back in 2008. And when the market crashed, I lost everything. I had my car repossessed. I was living in a $2 million house in California, walking everywhere.
yeah.
And then the house was taken. Then I had no money. Then I was like California to Colorado. And I'm just like, fuck. I was in the depths of addiction. It was like, yeah. Yeah, I think I had just gotten clean right when I met you, were pretty close to it. But yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother. Yeah. But yeah, the drug thing, man. I think it's. Here's my stance on it. Like, my stance is, I do wish it could be legalized, like everything. I wish everything could be legalized. I think it could be controlled. I think a lot of good could be done with the tax dollars.
Yeah.
But there's the flip side to that, though, too, that I started thinking about is, if you legalize drugs, I'm just going to use cocaine as an example. Like, let's say cocaine became legal. You could go to your pharmacy and pick up cocaine. You knew exactly what you were getting. You didn't have to worry about it being laced with fucking fentanyl and dying or foaming at the mouth with fucking bath salts or whatever. But also, there's the guy who is pretty, like, straight edge, square kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
That suddenly goes, well, shit. Fuck, I mean, I've always kind of wondered, I wasn't going to go down a dark alley or like buy it from the dealer. I've never tried it, but well, shit, now that it's at Walgreens, like, fuck, I'm going to go in there and get a little cocaine. And I think that's the other side to it, is that it might create more addicts. Yeah. So I don't know. I go back and forth on it with the whole drug thing, but I think every drug initially is a stimulant, everything.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's a poison. But back to, just a place in your life where it was like really fucking dark, bro. And, if you're willing to share a little bit about that, like what that was like, what it was, and more importantly, like if you're speaking to the individual that's there now,
Yeah.
like how did you get out of it? And what perspective do you have now that you've gone through that?
Great question. I don't know if I have answers for the other side, because I think I was talking to my therapist about this a few years ago, and I don't even know what the fuck those planes are called with like 3 engines on each. I don't even know if it's 3 engines, but the old school, I think they're military planes. They have like 6 props, and I was like, dude, I just feel like like life's this juggling act, and it's like, okay, like engine 1's down, that's okay, we got the other 3, or sure. I feel like when things aren't going well for me, I feel like just all engines are seized and I'm fucking like, the
Same.
crash is about to happen, So, so I don't know if I have any answers for people, but I can just try to be open and share. I've been in a lot of very dark places in my life and continue to be. I think everything has its place. I've used drugs and alcohol most of my life. I've been sober just about a year from doing 75 hard, which I mentioned to you. And you mentioned cocaine. I had this weird thing because I was completely sober on 75 hard. And then I do believe that there's very positive properties on some plant medicines and psychoactive substances. So I was like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like, okay, I'm not doing these, but this is okay. And I think just being sober really kind of helped me with a lot of things, but also just kind of like pick and choose what I decide to do. And some of that's been psychedelics. I'm not opposed to doing mushrooms, and psilocybins become decriminalized in Colorado. I think they have like medicinal properties, and ketamine, LSD. And when I came to this realization, like, what are the things that I shouldn't be doing or aren't good for myself? It's the things you want to do all the time, and then you want to do like the next day to make yourself feel better because you feel ashamed, right? So I think that that's just not good. Even though I was immersed in that for a long period of the majority of my life. And you can justify it, but it is an escape. Like if you're feeling low and then you just get, you fucking drink yourself into oblivion every night and go to bed and wake up and deal with the same shit. You're not facing things, which I think is a way to stay in the darkness. So I think I'm not telling people to stop drinking alcohol or whatever, but I think for me, getting that clarity and not numbing myself helped out. And not to say that I stopped drinking, everything was wonderful. I've been through, a lot of adversity in my life starting. It's like in your questions, it mentioned I'll think of a early childhood memory. What's the first one? I don't know what the first one was, but I have a lot of these cool memories as a kid. A lot with my dad. My dad passed away from an accident when I was in my early 20s. I was super close to him, as you know. That was kind of like the first really fucked up, tragic thing that happened in my life, just like something beautiful and wonderful that all of a sudden wasn't there, and dealing with a family death at that time and being like the man of the household, whatever, in my early 20s. And then, so that was kind of like when I look back at my first adversity or darkness, I think that's kind of where that started. And then, just to be very candid, I don't know if I don't know if I've been suicidal, but there's days where man, if it wasn't for my kids and JuJitsu and my pug Sasha, I'm I could flush this whole fucking thing down the toilet. It's just, I get in those places. But, and again, I don't know if I have the answer to what keeps you going, but I think just Tony Robbins mentioned this too. It's you can go through anything with the belief, the hope. He said fear and faith are the same thing. They're made up things of something in the future, right? So if you lose hope, I think that's why people take their lives, right? You have no hope, So it's you
lose sight of it.
You lose sight of it. So it's you can be in the shittiest situation right now, but if you have that belief, and again, it's made up, it's not guaranteed that tomorrow's better or that the best is yet to come, or however you want to look at it, you can change things, you are in control, you can manifest things. There's a higher power out there that's working in your favor, and whatever that belief is, hopefully that can help people get through some dark times. But for me, I wish I had an answer. I feel even the past few years of my life have been a big transition, relationship wise. I got divorced, and thank God, Carly and I are in a great space. I love her to death. We're an anomaly as far as divorce go. I've had friends go through fucking terrible divorces and shit like that. as far as that goes, that was like kind of the best scenario. But it's like, kind of having a life that I envision continuing go away after 20 years, and then, struggling financially, struggling with purpose, struggling with like all these ideas and which one do I do and which one am I supposed to do. I feel like, I don't know if we've talked about this before too. I don't know if that's part of the human condition or like I'm fucked up. And I think the hope in that is not that I want to wish suffering on other people, but I know most people suffer. And the other thing that I've really been kind of thinking of when I am struggling is that the struggle is actually good. Like we talked about that through this whole show. It's like, okay, the process, the struggle, what's on the other side of the struggle. I'm trying to differentiate between struggle and suffering. So I think we suffer a lot. We take on a lot of suffering. We have a lot of suffering that's of our own design, which I don't think is healthy. I think if you go into knowing like, hey, I want to start this business, or I want to stay committed to my marriage, it's not always going to be easy. It's going to be a struggle sometimes, but we don't have to suffer along with that. So I think we can try to embrace the suffering, or embrace the struggle and let go of the suffering, and just stay on the path and try to grow and become what we want to become.
And I think we're all fucked up. Like, I think everybody's got their shit, right? Yeah. Like, in fact, Soli and I talk about it a lot, where there's like, maybe an individual or a family where we really admire them.
Yeah.
And I think social media has enhanced this, but we've sort of like idealized who we think they are.
Yeah.
I think is what's important to say. Not who they are, but who we think they are, what it looks to be.
Yep.
But the truth is, dude, is even the best of the best, even the, whoever it is you think has it all, and like there's almost a little envy, they don't have it all.
Yeah.
They haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
There's something that they struggle with too.
Yeah.
We just don't know about it.
Yeah.
Right? So,
and I think it's overused, like authenticity and being whatever. But I think there is a value to that, where like even just getting on your podcast, which I appreciate you having me on, but just trying to be transparent and everything. It's easy to make things look really shiny. And I remember when I got a divorce, it was a shock to most of our social circle, because like everything looked great, and I don't even have like a social media footprint. So it wasn't even like I was posting like, hey, I'm on vacation or whatever. Just like, our social circle and having parties, stuff, everything looked great. But, there was this emptiness inside of me, and a void, and a lack of, feeling of a lack of purpose, and questioning myself, and all the fucked up shit that I think a lot of people experience. But we're not, we all have our shadows, and we're all dealing with them. But I think, and it's great that you create an environment like this where people are comfortable to talk about that stuff. And I think that's some of the most empowering messaging out there, is not the people fucking rolling up in their Lambos and be like, I got rich in a month by fucking do a drop shit, It's the people that are fucking real, and talk about how hard shit is and how they navigated through dark places. And if the end goals are like, wealth, abundance, impact, fulfillment, whatever they are, I think along the way, if we are honest about our lives and what we're going through, I think we can help people with some of the questions you asked today. It's like, how do you get started? How do you not quit? It's like, I don't fucking know these answers, but all I know is like, I'm trying, and I'm going to keep trying. And I think there's comfort in knowing that, again, not to put people down a notch. Like, I like seeing other people do great. And I think there's a whole another show we could probably talk about comparison and, what that does to the psyche. But I think there is comfort in knowing that you're not alone in your struggle. So it's just it's comforting to know that just, it's like everyone doesn't have their fucking shit together. So it'd be nice if someone does, but I don't think anyone does, no matter what things look like on the surface. So,
Knowledge too, like you made the comment about, sometimes you're just like, man, if it wasn't for my kids, I'd flush it down the toilet.
yeah,
But the reason I think you don't, and I've been there too, so I can relate to that, and I think this is with every human being on the planet. I think God meant for us to do something great.
yeah,
And I think that oftentimes what keeps us going is that deep fucking belief that's been snuffed out. It's like your flame has been snuffed out in those moments.
yeah,
But there's a flicker. There's something that still says you're going to do something great, and it's not worth it to throw it all away.
yeah,
And it's also very selfish. It's a very selfish thing to do. I don't think people think that that's like, people aren't thinking about that when they take their lives. I'm imagining. I've never taken my life, so I don't know. But the truth is you're letting people down, and I think a lot of people need to be willing to share what they went through,
yeah,
what they're going through, and what it looks like on the other side. If they have arrived in some particular place, like, dude, even like you doing 75 hard, man, like, I remember hearing you share that with me, and this was when I was in a moment where I was like, analyzing fucking everything, and like, funny looking back, I'm like, I know there's moments where Chris was like, dude, these are just excuses, man. These are just excuses, but we all have them, and I don't know, somehow I pulled through it, but
I'm really proud of you. What day are you on?
yeah, today's day 52. Yeah, so that's just, well, thank you.
It's called 75 hard for a reason.
Yeah, well, dude,
You get in the swing. I want to say one last thing before
yeah.
I know, but I think some of this, like the whole topic of, and this does tie into mental health. And I had he wasn't a close buddy of mine, but a friend of mine from high school just shot himself like a couple months ago. And I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I didn't know he lived in Colorado. And another mutual friend was like, oh, did you hear? I won't say his name, but I was like, holy fuck, dude. And I just remember, it's been so long since I've seen this dude. I just remember this like happy, smiley dude. And then we just had someone that I know I'm not super close with, but their 18-year-old boy just took his life like within the last couple of weeks. They live in my neighborhood. And I just think about that, man. So like, that's just the scar for life. And like, people get to the hopeless point where they don't see any light. It's just all dark, and it's so all consuming that's the answer, is to fucking end it all. And I don't think that's ever the answer, even though we've probably all have been there. But I think some of the mental and emotional stuff we've been talking about, I think there is some positive to that. And like, I think you and I experience this, at least I can only talk for myself, but every time I say how I feel, which I think is isolated to me, you're like, I feel the same way. I told you, I feel like a fucking misfit in the world a couple weeks ago. You're like, me too, dude. I'm like, I'm covered and you're struggling with me in that. But I think here's the positive thing about the struggle is, I think the people that think they were, or feel, or however, have that experience of like, know that there's some greatness in their life, or some greatness, or some gifts they need to bring forth in the world. If you didn't have that, and we were just content being fucking whatever, like, there wouldn't be that turmoil in bridging that gap of where we are now and what we want to be and who we want to become. And I feel like that fucking like haunts me. And it's a good thing, because it drives me towards the thing of like, how can I bridge this gap between like this vision I have for my life? And I feel like my life in a lot of ways is so far from what I want to manifest. I just need to stay on that path. And I think in sharing ideas, and you and I talking about business plans and goals and stuff, like, we think very big, and I think that goes hand in hand with the people that are trying to manifest big things. It's like that struggle is tied into that, because if you're far away from that, then it's going to be a fucking struggle to get there, which I think we need to embrace. But I think that gap is one of the things that causes our internal turmoil. And that's, I think, one of the things that I was trying to embrace more of the struggle instead of having that, suffering's like, why the fuck am I not this person, or why do I have this or whatever. That's the suffering part of it. The struggle part of it is more the embracing that and saying, okay, I'm here now, and here's the things I want to create and manifest, and here's my plan, even though that plan will shift and change, and as we talked about earlier. But I think there's some good to those emotions that we have inside of us. So
well, it's like the comparison thing, right? We can't know what it feels like to feel fucking awesome unless we have a reference or a mental image picture of maybe what it's felt like to not feel awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Because we wouldn't know how feeling awesome feels.
Yeah. Well, if you and I are creating, or whatever we're creating, the byproduct of that is our story, right? Which we know is actually the real impact. People like you and I listen to all shit. It's like, dude, this guy's worth fucking 500 million. He was in jail 2 years ago. Like, that's kick ass.
Yeah.
The story of greatness, actually, that gap has to be big for that to be a compelling story. Like, it's not that cool of a story. It's like, I've done awesome all my life, and now I'm doing really awesome. Like, people are like, who gives a fuck? So maybe there's some good in these getting into these low dark spots, because the phoenix fucking rising from that is like, you're forged into fire and come out on the other end, and get your kids in JuJitsu as soon as they can crawl and walk. Learn the science and art of choking people and bending other joints the wrong way. It'll benefit their lives in many ways. I love you, brother. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Turn that loss to a check. Every time that I see a limit, I push right past it. Don't care if you got here first, the one to win is the last one standing. Say my life is like luck, nah.